Hey guys, it's time to Nefis and chill, and in this video we'll be reviewing the nerf to the monster set Vykosa. Before we peel away the layers of this nerf like a Russian grandmother in Kazan peels onions, I want to get everyone familiar with what exactly Vykosa is. So Vykosa is a 2-piece undaunted monster set that offers 4% additional healing taken, and when you bash an enemy you've taunted, you apply Major Maim to them for 3 seconds, which lowers their damage done by 30%. You can proc it again after 12 seconds due to its 15-second cooldown, but its 3-second duration. On the Harrowstorm DLC PTS as of week 2 version 5.3.1, Vykosa no longer applies Major Maim, and instead reduces the target's spell and weapon damage by 268. And to compensate for the harsh nerf, they increased the duration to 8 seconds, while reducing the cooldown to 12 seconds, which once proc is 4 seconds. Just to give you guys a comparison between live and PTS, this world boss was doing a Savage Leap heavy attack for 9,184, with no mending or Vykosa active. With Major Maim from Vykosa on the live server, that went down dramatically to about 6,437. With mending, it went from 9,184 to 8,212, and mending offers 430 weapon damage, which is just barely under the value of the PTS Vykosa, just as an example. And Vykosa PTS, the value of it is again 268 weapon and spell damage reduction. For bosses, it doesn't matter if you reduce your weapon or spell damage, as long as you reduce your damage. It's just kind of weirdly calculated. The weakening infused one-hander on the PTS for live is just barely under Vykosa, so that gives you an idea of how underwhelming the new Vykosa is. Based upon this testing, it's pretty much safe to conclude that Vykosa will no longer be run by any tank in PvE, and as it wasn't used by most PvPers in the first place, it's pretty much gonna be a dead set. And this is where I start having issues with the nerf. The first issue is that Update 25 looks pretty great actually on the item set side. They're revamping, buffing, and readjusting a good amount of item sets for the Harrowstorm patch, including Ashen Grip, Molakina, Clever Alchemist, and so on. But then the ZeniMax Online Studios developers just kind of took a weird 2 steps forward and then half a step back with this Vykosa nerf by pretty much killing the set. The second issue is that, well, it was a very, very niche set, even for PvE tanks, who primarily use it right now to mitigate Navintas and Sunspire, St. Olms in the Slime Sanctorium, maybe sometimes a Valerio explosion in the Therian Archive, and well, that's pretty much it. Now, I've heard of tanks using it for other boss fights like the Warrior and Howrah Hardmoon, the Refabrication Committee, and the Burn Thread or whatever, but generally speaking, even for all these fights mentioned, you don't really need Vykosa, and it doesn't make you invincible as a tank or always guarantee, let's say, a no death or a score for the group. Leading to the third issue, trying to use the set without knowing the sets, or rather the fights I mean, or when mechanics happen, make this a terrible set in the first place for most tanks. Vykosa currently rewards tanks using it, who use it on time and intelligently and reactively, compared to just using boring sets like Bloodspawn or Lord Warden or some other set that requires you to do absolutely nothing with a changing combat around you as a tank. So they definitely missed the mark with this nerf to Vykosa, or adjustment to Vykosa as they'll probably say. And then this leads us to ask a question, the primary question: why did they nerf Vykosa? Do they A, think Vykosa could be better with this change? B, think Vykosa is too strong with the Major Maim and is exceeding their envisioned power budget for the set? Obviously, it's not option A, as you can see from our testing, at least from my perspective. The whole point of Vykosa is to have a noticeable mitigation impact in a very, very short amount of time. 3 seconds is really not that long, but the nerf to it on the PTS means it's going to be a very, very bad mitigation for a very long time, for 8 seconds, which, you don't really need that many seconds in PvE to make an impact. If they were thinking of perhaps making this better for PvPers, as we can note with them putting in both spell and weapon damage reduction, unlike the set Mending, which only reduces weapon damage, I still don't see any PvPer ever using this over the other more cheesy or useful options available to them, especially in champion point PvP. But so if it's B, and they think it's overperforming. Let's dissect the reasoning behind this nerf just a little bit. If Vykosa is too strong with Major Maim, or rather, if Major Maim is too strong to be put on a 2-piece item set, where else do we get Major Maim from as players? The first place we can get it from is the Templar's Dawn's Wrath Ultimate Nova, and its morphs, which applies Major Maim to everything in AoE. Fair enough, it's an ultimate ability, it's very powerful. However, the second place where we can get Major Maim from is Frozen Device, a non-ultimate skill available for use to all wardens that not only applies Major Maim, but does it for an entire second longer than Vykosa. Are we going to see a nerf to Frozen Device eventually? Is this another conspiracy to have players buy the Warden class? Or do the devs want to perhaps entice us into buying or at least staying subscribed to ESO Plus to get access to a new juicy set coming out with Harrowstorm DLC? That's right, a new 5-piece item set called Bonnie's Torment, I guess is how you pronounce it, from one of the 2 new dungeons for Update 25 Ice Reach is coming to a store near you. This 5-piece set offers Major Maim upon taunting a target. Not only did they add Major Maim to this new set, but also Major Vitality. Both of these effects last for 5 seconds. The cooldown is every 14 seconds, but in effect, 9 seconds after duration ends. Anyway, there's 2 glaring issues with this Bonnie's Torment set. Number 1, this whole proc on taunting, especially for PvE tanks. And definitely this is going to be banned in PvP dueling tournaments and be a cause of complaint, I'm sure, for general PvP. But focusing on the PvE aspect in this video, for PvE tanks, the devs literally ignored the feedback regarding Vykosa when it came out with the Wolf Hunter DLC. For those of you who don't remember, Vykosa originally was activated upon taunt. This is a problem because you can't time the proc of the Major Maim reliably when you need to, which is why Vykosa can now be activated with Bash on a taunted target. They recognize that issue. But with this set, same problem, man. They repeated history. They did it again. I'm not sure why. Number 2, it's a 5-piece item set. I can definitely see some struggling or beginner tanks thinking, hey, this Bonnie's Torment is a really good set for their own survivability, but in essence, the nerf to Vykosa along with the introduction of Bonnie's Torment has an ultimate conclusion here. 1, Vykosa is dead, no tank, even in mid-tier, progression regroup is going to replace Eben, Alkashi, Onokrin, Torgs, Worm, Hersines, Morog, or even a few of the other sets I can mention that actually help the group with Bonnie's Torment, because again, leading to the second point, tying all of this together, recall what I said about Vykosa. It's still a niche PvE set that's actually useful and fun to use for very few boss fights in PvE. And nor it's not used everywhere, nor would it be used everywhere because Major Maim is definitely not needed for a majority of the PvE content we have today. Basically, guys, too long to watch, nerf to Vykosa makes no sense. There's a couple solutions I like to offer. Number 1, make the cooldown on Vykosa longer. If the devs actually think it's overtuned, or I don't know, but maybe make the Major Maim a second shorter or something if they think it's somehow overperforming. Or if they really don't want to add Major Maim back to the set, increase the value of the new Vykosa as a weapon and spell damage reduction to the point it's actually worth running. I'm not going to, as a tank, run a 2-piece monster set that offers nothing for either myself or the group, especially a 2-piece item set I can replace with a one-hander enchantment. Like, I don't know. I'd suggest maybe shortening the time frame for an increased value if necessary. I'd say at least 600 weapon and spell damage reduction. But yeah, anyway, guys, that's the nerf to Vykosa, my thoughts on it. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments below, because I'm sure some of you have your own different opinions and thoughts on the nerf. Thanks for watching Nefis and Chilling, and I'll see you guys next time. Please stay safe.